What's good, y'all? Podcast episode 142. Hope everyone's having a good week so far. It's Wednesday, and we are back at it. On my way to work. Hit the gym, hit the sauna, got it in. You know, same old. Man, we got a new song dropping this Friday, and yeah, man, sorry, I'm trying to pull out. All right, there we go. Had to get gas. We got a new song dropping this Friday. Count it up. Me and my homie Young Kai. We man, we got a little project on the way that we're excited about, and yeah, man. Got the new album out now, Cruize. Go check it out. Let me know what your favorite song is. You know, we worked really hard on it, and yeah, man, just proud of the work that we put in. So, yeah. What else is new, baby? Not too much. Trying to get my landscaping done around the house. Had to we ran out of mulch, so I had to go back and get some more. I had to get 15 more bags, so we'll see how that is. Just trying to get that done and kind of keep it flowing, making the house look nice for the summertime. Man, my cheek is real swollen. I don't know why. Need to take a breath, you know? Just gotta take a breath, baby. Sometimes we just need to, you know? I didn't really have much of a plan when I hit record. I just thought, you know, let's give it a go and see what happens. And I think that's kind of how, sometimes I feel like that's how life is supposed to be lived, you know? We overplan and overthink and overanalyze, and so much that it just stops us from taking action. You know, I think sometimes, you know, having like an outline is nice. Like, you have a goal in mind. And obviously, if you have a goal, there's got to be some sort of outline that helps you get to that goal. But I think when you start to overplan and overthink things, like, that's when it becomes a problem. And that's part of the reason why I feel like this podcast, you know, or these videos or whatever is healthy for me personally, because you know, I don't always have a plan. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I know what I want to talk about, but sometimes I don't. And those times are okay too. Like, it's okay either way. You know? I feel like as long as you're doing something that's productive or moving your life forward, either way, whether you have a plan or not, is okay. Sometimes you just gotta trust your gut instincts. You know, a lot of times when you know that you're putting good in, you just have to trust that good's gonna come out of it. I feel like I've put a lot of good in. What do I mean by that? You know, the fact that I'm hitting the gym, I'm reading, I'm listening to things that are healthy, talking to God, talking to friends and family. You know, when you put good in, you're bound to get good out. And that's just kind of where I'm at. You know, I'm focused on putting good into my body, into my mind. And, you know, don't get me wrong, there's times where I slip up. There's times where, you know, maybe I'm listening to something that that isn't good. You know, I think especially with hip-hop music, it's easy to do that for sure. You know, because even though the songs are good and they're popular and this and that, it doesn't always make them healthy or something that you should be listening to and putting into your mind. So, you know, sometimes I slip up, and I'm a human, you know, that's it. I'm not perfect. I try to be, I guess, but, you know, we always fall short of perfection. As long as we're human. And it's okay. Man. Yeah, I'm just out here living, baby. Just out here living. Just trusting that good is going to come out of it. I will say, I do think I know now. I have a little bit more insight on why I've been so like anxious recently. And I think I'm just burnt out, you know. I think I'm burnt out from work, from social media, from my phone, from music, from my routine. You know, I think I'm just burnt out. And I think that when life happens that requires change, and you're already burnt out, and then it requires more from you, I think for me, my body just like freaked out. Like, whoa, like, dude, like you've already pushed us to the limit. Like, what are we doing here? So I think it's good that I've identified what the root cause of the anxiety is, but now I'm just trying to find ways to step back, you know, just step back and let go of things that are creating burnout in my life. You know, a big one for me is outside of a day job. You know, we can all say that. Day jobs, you know, unless it's something that I feel like you are very passionate about, at some point you're going to see a burnout. So I'm going to step back away from that. But also, for me personally, like this pressure of feeling like I have to create music all the time. Like I have to be in the studio day in or day out, or I'm just going to get left behind. And that's just not the case, you know? Maybe it is for some people. But for me, for me and my goals, that's not the case. And I'm learning that things have seasons. All things. You know, if your favorite sports team has a season, the earth has seasons. You know, all things have a season where they come and they go. And, you know, you might win that season, you might lose. But in the off season, you're just preparing to get better for when that season comes back around. And when that season comes back around, you've used what you learned in the off season and apply it to the new season. So, understanding that that I don't have to constantly create, like music especially. I want to always be in a creative state, but that's just not the case. You know, sometimes I have to focus on other things. Yeah, man. I hope all that makes sense. I know sometimes I just get on here and flap my jaws, but it's kind of what's been on my mind today. And just recently, you know, I feel like I feel like I know that I'm burnt out, and I've known it for a while. So now I'm just stepping back so my flame can be relit, you know? Relit by things that I do enjoy in life. I feel like that's kind of where the burnout stems from. Like, your candle gets burnt out because you're not doing things that you enjoy. Or maybe you're putting too much pressure. You know, if you blow on your candle so much, eventually it's going to go out. So you got to remove the pressure so your candle can be lit at all times. You know? And it's okay if you're burnt out. You know, that's another thing I keep telling myself. Like, it's okay. It's okay. It's all going to be okay. You know? Just because you're burnt out now does not mean your flame won't be relit. You know, you just have to take a step back and change your perspective on things. You know, my perspective needs changed. I need a new way of thinking. And I think the only way to change your way of thinking is stepping back and letting go of all those thought patterns that you've been just so accustomed to for so long. But now you know. Now you know where those thought patterns lead you. You might have some success. You might see some success. You might have even had a winning season. But if you keep going with the same thought patterns, the same, mentality and processes, eventually that winning season's going to turn into an uglier season. It's funny how sports relate so much to life. So, I'm just stepping back, baby. Taking a step back, realigning with my ultimate purpose in God, and, shaping my life around it. I heard recently, it was like, you need to cut off everything that's distracting you from God. Some things might even be good. Some things that you need to cut off might not look too bad on the surface. But if they're not backed by your godly purpose, you need to remove them. Whether that's people, things, habits, whatever it is. So I'm trying to find and identify those things that are blocking me from my godly purpose. I don't want to be an old man that's just miserable and burnt out. I want to to be a strong man for my family, a happy, joyful man that's also backed by a purpose-filled life. So, yeah, man. I think this was a decent episode for not having a plan and just kind of letting my mind wander a little bit. Yeah, it's okay to wander. When did we get so grown that we just lose this childlike wonder? You know? If you put a kid in the woods, that kid's, he's going to wander off. He's going to go and try to find treasure. He's going to make the situation fun. You know, he's not going to sit there and overanalyze and, you know, fear the outcomes and have anxiety. Like, he's going to, you know, a child of wonder is going to be one that looks for hope, you know, is hopeful to find what he's looking for. And most of the time those kids are just looking to have fun, you know? They're looking for what's fun. You know, I recently heard a quote, and I could do a whole episode on this because it impacted me that much. You know, in any situation that's tense or stressful or whatever, ask yourself, you know, how can I make this fun? How can I make this fun? And I'm pretty sure it was like an Instagram video that I saw. But this guy, he rented like an Airbnb. He was on vacation, rented an Airbnb. He goes and opens up the window, and it's just a construction site. There's like 20 guys out there doing construction while he's on vacation. And he didn't know when he rented the place that it was on a construction site. And, you know, instead of getting bent out of shape and upset, he asked himself, like, how can I make this situation fun? And I'm pretty sure the guy, like, went and got everyone milkshakes or smoothies or something. And, you know, it made the situation for the rest of the time that he was there less tense. You know, he was saying hi to people as he would open up his window, and, you know, it made his vacation. So I want to have that same approach, man. How can I make the situation fun? It doesn't always have to be stressful, intense, and just annoying. You know, like, it doesn't always have to be that. It can be fun. You can find some joy in life if you just sit there and wander. Yeah, I want to have that childlike wonder. Yeah, I see it in my daughter so much, you know. You know, she just she wants to have fun. Like, she wants to do fun things. She wants to enjoy life. And she doesn't necessarily think about, you know, how is this gonna, you know, impact my life, and how is this and that, you know, why should I be scared of this, and why, like, she just is. She's just being, you know, she's being a kid, with childlike wonder, man. You know, if we're in the grocery, like, she's dancing, she's singing, she doesn't care about who's next to her. And there's wisdom in that. much time and worry is spent like just constantly over analyzing and over planning and, you know, worrying what other people might think and worrying how is this going to make me look. And, you know, it's just, if we let go of that, you know, maybe we'll be happier. Maybe we'll find more peace. You know, we always hear it like, you know, there's freedom found when you stop worrying about what other people think. And I know that, and I have ingrained that in myself, but at the same time, I'm still worried about what other people think. And I think we just need to be constantly reminded to be a kid again. You know? I remember when I was a kid, you know, whenever we had sleepovers or anything, like I was always like the life of the party, you know, because I never worried about what other people thought. I just wanted to have fun. And that was my goal. Like, how can I make this situation fun? And then at some point in life just got so hard that I lost that. And I find myself like going into situations like tense and stressed out and just kind of just not a fun person to be around. You know, and then I wonder like why people don't gravitate towards me the way that they used to. Well, that's it, you know? That's it. So, yeah, man, I'm just trying to step back and relight my flame again. Relight the flame that life has burnt out of me. You know, it's not that serious. Not everything's an emergency. Not everything needs to have so much pressure attached to it that at any second it could just explode. Sometimes we just need to take a breath, let go, and just be a kid again. You know, it's easier said than done, for sure. But I don't want to let that be an excuse. You know, now that I know that I'm burnt out, now that I know my flame is out, now that I've identified the problem, now I can take a step back and allow my mind and my life to have that childlike wonder. And I want to use that childlike wonder to help me relight my flame again. Yeah, man. I'll leave it there. I know it's kind of took a deeper turn, but yeah, man, I just feel like that's kind of been on my heart. You know, that childlike wonder. So, go check out our new song dropping this Friday, Count It Up. Go check out the new album, Cruize, out now. And yeah, man, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. If we don't talk the rest of this week, I'll see you guys next week. So, much love. Peace.